Hey, hello. Today I have something really special for you today. I'm here with my friend Carolyn, who you may have seen on a video that Matt and I recorded earlier, just a little bit earlier. We did maybe little known yin channels that we want you to know for summer. And Carolyn was featured in that. And you guys probably heard me just going gaga over her intention for her channel because it really sparked something in me. And so we're going to talk about that today because I reached out to Carolyn and I said, like, I really want to know how you arrived there. Because as somebody who's been teaching for 20 years now, practicing for over 2 decades, I've got to admit I struggle with staying connected with my why, both for practicing and for teaching. And I'm finding my way back to it. But, Carolyn, you really struck a chord in me that made me realize I really need to reconnect with why I'm doing this. And so I want to start with, I'm going to let you speak, but I really want to start leading with your intention because do you want to read it or do you want me to read it? It would be more powerful if you read it. Do you have it?
God, I don't even have it open.
Okay, I'll read it for you. Thanks. I go. Right okay. So Carolyn teaches empaths and sensitive souls how to create a collaborative relationship with their bodies through cozy, accessible yoga and self-care practices in order to live a life filled with less doing and more being. She's Canadian, a fellow Canadian. I changed this wording a little bit so it made sense in the context of introducing her on the yin channels that we were featuring. She's a fellow Canadian who strives to offer a safe and welcoming space for people who might have felt discouraged by lack of options offered in other classes. She releases weekly, either yin or gentle hatha with the intention of leaving you feel calmer, grounded, and a little bit better. And for me, it was just like there was so much clarity in that. And also the whole thing just made me, there was so much clarity. There was so much niche. And it just made me go, oh, I want to be there. So yeah, I wanted to know like how you got there and how you got so clear on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big question. So I think that, and just like, so we were just chatting just before we started this and talking about how there's this like kind of funny dance that you have to do, or I'll speak for myself that I have to do as a yoga teacher, between staying really true to myself and my practice and what are my intentions in terms of my own yoga practice. As well as what is my intention as a yoga teacher, because those are two separate things, but they beautifully can overlap. Mm-hmm. I think kind of as often as I can stay really true to myself and what really lights me up as a yogi, dance that has to be done kind of over and over again. The how in terms of getting there, I think it's always kind of the accessible yoga piece to it has always really been there. So I've been teaching since 2014, but I've been practicing since 2008. I was in grade 10 when I took my first yoga class with my mom, and grade 10, like I was in high school and like already feeling crappy about my body and about how like, just, I mean, you're a teenager, right? You feel weird. And I was in a bigger body, and it was like the first time that I myself had ever felt welcome. Nala's gonna come and say hi. So it was for sure the first time for me that I felt like welcome. Welcome is a word that I think I say a lot in my classes because it was the first time that I felt welcome in a space, that it was okay for me to look the way that I was, that the practice allowed me to feel beautiful and confident and empowered. So I think it started all the way there. But I've been on this like really long journey over the course of the many, many years that I've been practicing, where the lesson of creating a collaborative relationship with my body has been a lesson that I've had to like learn over and over and over again. That whenever I listen to my body and put my body first, is when things feel just more ease filled. Because I mean, I feel like I don't need to say too much of this, but we know, like, we're constantly being told that there's something wrong with our bodies, right? Like we can leave it at that. We know that. And so to have a space where you can finally feel like it is okay. And not only is it okay for the way that your body is and the way that your body moves, but that it is welcome and that it is perfect. Like, how many spaces do we have that? Not many. I know for myself, not many. Yeah. So yeah, that collaborative relationship with your body was really, really key. And that was an intentional decision, because the moment, like, to not get kind of too much into it, but the moment for me in my life within the past 2 years was when I was like not teaching at all. And I was working a full-time job at a gym because I thought that's like what I was supposed to be doing, right? Like doing the real thing in terms of getting the real job. And I ended up getting like smacked in the head by the universe with the lesson of like, what are you doing? Listen to your body, because I got these like crazy panic attacks because I wasn't listening to my body. My body was exhausted and I was tired. And that was like the moment where I finally decided like, hey, no, I need to, at every point in my life, on my yoga mat, in my work and my relationships, I need to put my body first. And that means not only physically, but also like meeting your energetic levels, and like honoring the way that you move. So that's kind of one of the pieces in terms of like my own journey to getting to that piece of collaborative relationship. The other thing that I do want to say, which is, it's kind of ironic that we're having this conversation, is that when I first started the business, that wasn't the intention.
I think that's important though, right? Is that is to be open to change, and to allow it to shift and morph, and to let ourselves revisit our intentions and let them change over time. To like, that's normal, that it doesn't have to be set in stone. It's not a one and done thing.
Totally.
Like, that's rigidity. I mean, yoga, like we're creating flexibility in our mind and our bodies, and in our bodies, and also in our minds, right? Ultimately, that's why we're practicing, right?
Yeah, is trying to ride the waves of life. Life
right?
is incredibly fluid.
Yeah.
So totally. And
there'll probably come a point when you feel like you've outgrown this too in some way, that you'll need to change it again. And to be open to that.
Yeah, exactly. So like the initial intention was a lot more body focused. But then over time, I kind of realized that like there is more to it than that, in terms of like, not only does the world, as well as sometimes the yoga world, tell you that you're meant to look a certain way to practice yoga, but you also are sometimes told that you have to be a certain way to practice yoga. Right? So like high energy, consistent practice, all of that type of stuff. So that's where the really key sensitive soul and empath kind of comes into play, and the word like cozy come into play, and that intention,
so
because
nice.
like we like there's so many more people than just like that one type of person that we see in the yoga world.
We've been talking a lot in our community about it lately as the fantasy self. We expect our fantasy self to be able to show up on the mat every day, and that fantasy self always has the full tank of energy. And I don't know about you, but that full tank of energy for me is an elusive thing. It's definitely not a daily thing. It's definitely not a weekly thing, even for me. So in terms of energy, I'm talking about at this moment. But so the fantasy self is very much, I think of her sort of like this She's almost like a witch on a broom, and she's rarely present. She lives in some other dimension. She shows up occasionally, but not often. And yet
No.
I designed my entire yoga practice around this elusive creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to turn that off because you're told that that's how you should be doing
Mm-hmm.
it.
And that's what we see. That's the way yoga gets presented to us, right? In the media, in social media, in advertising, on every yoga book, on every yoga
Yeah.
magazine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I realized that I could still call myself a yogi, like even before I was teaching consistently, that I could still call myself a yogi even if my yoga practice consisted of child pose the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like such like a, oh, yeah, totally. Like
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to involve a full strong sun salutation or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Or even
Um,
poses.
or even poses. Yes,
Yeah.
you could be breathing and you're doing yoga.
Right. Absolutely. You
Yeah.
can be breathing. It's a full part of the, like, the eightfold path, right? It's one of the, yeah, it's a crucial part of practice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
I mean,
I don't
without
know
it, you're
about
dead.
you. Yeah.
There would be no
Exactly.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah. But like I just, yeah, like I'm sure that you get this too, but just like when people say like, oh, I can't practice yoga because I'm not flexible enough, or I can't practice yoga because I'm too fat. Like, ooh, like, no,
Yeah.
please come to my classes. Please step onto your mat. This space is like the yoga practice at its core. When we don't talk about the industry of yoga, the practice at its core is for everyone.
Yeah. The
Everyone.
biggest one that hurts me so much is I can't practice yoga because I can't do the asanas.
Yeah.
Because it's just yoga is so much more vast than that. You know, there's
Yeah.
yoga nidra and there's shavasana, there's pranayam, there's meditation. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's so
Exactly.
much. Yeah. It breaks my heart. It literally breaks my heart. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it breaks my heart, but it also kind of like lights a fire
Yeah. It's like the
under
Leonard
my
Cohen quote, right? With the 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 crack is where the light comes in. The
oh
yeah.
no.
You know that song lyric? The light is where the crack is where the light comes in. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure we'll have people that will like
Yeah.
be like,
Put
this
it
is
in the
it.
comments. You know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's kind of the how, I guess.
Yeah. And I want to like really circle way back to something that you touched on right at the beginning that I think is really important, which is the edge. And edge is something we talk a lot about in yoga and yin yoga in particular, which is this edge between um and something I feel a lot, this edge between intention for teaching versus intention for your own practice, And I feel like there's a whole other layer that shows up for this when you go in the world of YouTube, right? When you create content for YouTube as well, it just adds a whole other layer to it, which I think creates a lot of conflict, which I feel like you've gotten around with this intention. So let's feel into that edge a little bit.
I think um I I don't know, for some reason the words that kind of come to mind for me is like giving permission,
Mm-hmm.
like over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
is like giving myself permission to think differently, to be differently, to practice differently, and that so there's like that aspect to it, but then there's also, and it's like this brings it back, for me, I chuckle, like it brings it back to the yoga practice, is that like that sense of awareness, that like compassionate awareness, that non-judgmental witness, right? That plays into when you're on your mat, in terms of like being aware of again, like the things that like light me up, but then that also resonate with the students. So having to really, really like set my ego aside when it comes to inviting in that awareness, and paying attention to my practice, paying attention to that, and then again flipping to the other side, paying attention to the students, and watching and listening. So it's like, again, it's that word collaborative that comes back into it, right? Like we're doing this together. Like it's not me teaching you, it's us doing this together.
And the witness, right? The witness of your own practice, and also witnessing their practice, which is, and really being in the moment with both of that, like yours and theirs, and watching what really matters, you know, to you, what resonates with you and your body, and what really resonates with them and their practice as well. And I feel like the reason why I'm really bringing this forward is because those aren't the things that get typed in the search box, you know?
Right.
So those aren't like, I feel like for me, like this is where I've really struggled and found a disconnect in the last several years, and as a online yoga teacher, right? Because if you were to create a class for self-compassion, or, you know, I'm trying to recall all the beautiful things you just said. They aren't things that get searched for in Google. They aren't things that get searched for on YouTube. And so I don't know that they get found, and then your classes don't get practiced. Yeah. And I'm just being completely honest here.
No,
just
totally.
being completely honest. And yet, and so then when you do create the other classes, for me, they've left me feeling really hollow and disconnected.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel in this moment at 11:23 Pacific time on August 10th, when I'm talking to you, not willing to do that anymore. But that pull to have students is also very strong, you know?
Yeah. Hey, you've brought up a very, you've brought up a very good point. And this is going to be like, okay, this is like real talk. Like that's a real struggle. There's not a big difference, but there is absolutely a difference when it comes to creating a class for the YouTube channel than there is when I'm creating a class, when I'm teaching my live stream classes. Because the theme doesn't have to be, like you say, it doesn't have to be searchable. It doesn't have to be yoga for hips when I'm teaching my live stream.
Yeah, yoga for hips. Yeah. Which, you know,
like, which is the most common thing.
Right. If you, there are certain classes that we know, you and I both know, if we name them, they're going to perform well.
Yep.
And others we know, if we do them, are our most meaningful work and are never going to get found.
I found that I sneak it in though. That's how I've been doing it.
Okay. Tell me more.
So, well, if we use the video that I think that you referred to in your the video that you featured me in, I use that one as an example. That was a deep hip stretch video. That's exactly what it was. But I think that it was in that one that I slipped in the lesson of finding resilience and using the tools that you have within yourself to breathe through or navigate through difficult sensation or challenging times.
Yeah, that was brilliant, because honestly, that class, it had, I mean, my hips, I'm like, I can't believe I'm turning 49 this year, but that class had certain poses in it that I don't know if I've got a little bit of arthritis in my hips now, but man, those poses never used to hurt me, but they hurt me now, you know?
Yeah, dragon pose is hard.
Yeah, well, those ones are okay still, but like happy baby and what other one did you have in there that I'm like, oh my God, I just like they just if I don't do them exactly right, they hurt.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
yeah,
I don't remember, but
but yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
coaching through them was what would like maybe not bail on the class and choose another one.
That's so funny.
You know, poses that
Yeah.
you drop from your teaching because you're like, oh God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will definitely admit, I'll say here that I try to find a balance between, yes, finding those like searchable titles, but I will
I
stay
love
true to
that.
slipping in those lessons
I really
because
like that because then you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but you're staying true to yourself.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also
I did
what's
it
going
with
to resonate with people, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And like I don't know. I feel like especially if you're new to yoga, you I don't know if this is okay to say, but I'm going to say it
Mhm.
anyways. That like you think you know what you want in terms of like
Yes.
why you're coming to yoga.
Mhm.
Um, but you will be pleasantly surprised that there's a whole lot more that maybe you didn't know, or maybe you don't want to learn, but that you will learn.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I'm sure that you resonate with that because you've been teaching for a while. So
Yeah. And I think also, um, how to say this, I agree with you. And do we want a lot of students that do we want a lot of students or do we want a few students that are really connected with our core values and that we have a strong connection with? Like you keep talking about a collaborative relationship, right? Do we want a tight knit community with that we have a really collaborative relationship with, or do we want a gazillion students with no connection, right?
I,
Because yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's what you're
I
gonna
picked
get.
very early on that I wanted the tighter, smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know, like all the students that come to my live stream classes, like I know them. Like I know them. Like we
Mm-hmm.
chat regularly and I know what's going on in their life. And it's beautiful because then I can create classes that are going to be really supportive for what's going on in their lives. And I
Mm-hmm.
would not be able to do that if I had many, 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 many students.
Right.
Um, yeah. And but there is the fear though that can sometimes trickle in terms of like financially sustainable. Like, is that
Mm-hmm.
financially sustainable? Or am I really doing it right? Or am I pushing myself enough? Right. So that's still present. It still comes
Mm-hmm.
in. So then, yeah, I I just want to say like it's not all like rainbows and
Right.
butterflies all the time. Like
So
that for sure comes in.
is it financially sustainable?
I
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, it's tough
Yeah.
sometimes for sure, but I think I have a continual practice around choosing to believe that it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'll speak for from my own experience that yes, it is. And we live very modestly.
Mhm.
Like we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. We don't own our own home. We drive I don't like a 15-year-old. I don't even know how old it is, but $1,000 car. You know what I mean? Like we live very, like when I look around at other people our age, we definitely don't have what other people our age have if I do that
Mhm.
comparison thing. But, it's a trade off because our life has meaning in the way that we want to have meaning, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an intentional decision. I also
Mm-hmm.
will say like I'm very, very blessed. Like my partner has like a good job. And so we've had many conversations around that about like she's been amazing in terms of like supporting this dream and being my rock and being like, no problem. Like I will get the job and you explore. So I'm very lucky in that respect. So there's different ways to do it is what I'm trying to say. Um, it doesn't always have to be the just teach a shit ton of classes and drain yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's really
other
important
ways.
to say too. And that's been true for us too.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think like that you didn't say, but that has also been an edge for me too. Like, when you put an intention like that out there, it really comes from your own soul. And then you connect other souls that resonate with you. And so, that's really vulnerable and also takes a lot of courage to say, like, this is what I stand for. And hey, does that resonate with you? But I think that that's also hard,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple things that kind of come to mind. One, I'm very lucky. My mom always raised us in a way where it was like, it's important to be vulnerable. It's important to be real. It's important to be honest and compassionate. So I'm very lucky in that respect, that it has made it feel a little less hard. And then I get very continuously reaffirmed in the value of that vulnerability, because it creates just such deeper connections with the students that I teach. There's a burr on the floor. I'm so sorry. Now let's see a dog. Oh man. But yeah, it create like I get the most like such sweet messages from some of the students that come to my classes. And not that that's the only thing that like sustains me. It's not, but it's absolutely a thing that is a reaffirming of like, yes, I am doing this right, because this matters to people. And I have people who are saying like, I'm finally feeling like I can practice yoga, and I've never felt like I've been able to do that before. And so it's all these different things that like are really helpful to like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing, even if it's scary, even if it's hard. It's really helpful when I know that I am actually making an impact every once in a while. So
yeah,
I will say that
it is really affirming for sure.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with the naysayers? Because especially on the online communities, and online spaces, it's so easy to be a keyboard warrior, right?
I think my channel's too small.
Too small.
Yet.
Okay.
Which is like fine for me.
Yeah, because I mean, as you grow, the target on your back grows, and it's a sign of growth. I try to tell myself it's a sign of growth, but it's hard, like especially like when you really put yourself out there, and when you really are sharing from that place of like what you value, what lights you up, and what is really meaningful to you. And then the keyboard warriors come up. I do still find that can be challenging sometimes it depends, right? Sometimes it slides off, and then sometimes it lands, right? And I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess if it lands, there's something to be looked at, and then sometimes sometimes I'm able to let it go really easily. Sometimes it gets triggering, but
yeah. I mean, the way in which I can relate to that is when I'm teaching in-person classes. Like I still teach a few in-person classes like in gyms. And I try and stay as true as I can to the way that I teach, right? But that's a different clientele. So I do absolutely have people sometimes who roll up their mat and walk out.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's not hard enough. It's not tough enough. It's not quick enough.
Yeah. It's not an exercise class.
Yeah, totally. So I don't know. It does suck sometimes.
Those gym settings can be tough. I remember those days. Or if you have to sub another person's class, you're never going to be the person that's supposed to be there. That's always so hard. I always feel like, don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
But yeah, those days are tough. I remember experiences like back in the teaching, because I was a fitness instructor pre-yoga, and one particular memory always stands out of subbing step classes. And this one person did it in everybody's class, but it was just so distracting. He would just do his own routine on the step, like double speed. And it was like, are you kidding me? So weird.
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we've like covered a lot of ground. Yeah, I do. Yeah, the only ground that we haven't covered, and I know you said it was going to be hard, but let's push you a little bit. Is the steps, like take us through the steps. And I know you feel like there weren't steps, but maybe you can kind of recall how you got there, like how you got so clear, because like that is what really stood out to me about your intention, is that it's so clear, it's so niche down. You have such clarity around what you want, and it's so focused. And I think whether we're practicing for ourselves or whether we're thinking about what we want to do for our students, there's a process that gets us there. And I'm really curious about what that was for you, whether that is over time, trainings, just the way you have practiced yourself. And it's like, feel free to kind of talk it out, because I think it's probably not one thing. It's probably many things.
Okay. Hang on. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Nala, get out of here. Go on, Nala. Oh my gosh. Okay, I got it. She does this weird thing where there's burrs on the ground, she freaks out. I don't know why. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Yes, I am happy to talk it out, because I like know all the things that have happened, but it feels very non-linear. I think maybe that's why I'm like, it's hard to explain the how, because it's non-linear.
Yeah,
but
I
as I'm
appreciate
saying
you.
that,
I appreciate you bringing that up right at the beginning, that it wasn't like this step, this step, this step, because I imagine it is very non-linear. These things are very non-linear. And yet we tend to present them as a very neat package and a step-by-step process, which isn't true.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, like I said, like there was one intention and then it changed. I'll say, like, I'll sprinkle in, it'll be kind of like random, the things that I'll say. One thing that I'll be super honest in saying, I did work with a business coach. So there is that. I did work with somebody. Her name is Pascal. Her business name is Change Your Latitude. And she was really, really helpful in offering me a few different tools in terms of speaking directly with my students and getting really clear on like things like what are words that come to mind to you when it comes to your yoga practice. So that was one thing that was really, really helpful. And also turning to words that I, as I teach, already use. Like the last few words of the intention, like doing less and being more. Like that is like, I say that all the time because, as I'm sure you know, like that's important. And like Shavasana, that is the most important pose of the entire class. And that is all about doing, no more doing, and only being, because we do so much. And if we can live a life in which we can be a lot more, then there's value to that. So that was one aspect, is like really looking at what are words that I already use. And
I really love that. Like, let's just, this might seem kind of cheesy, but let's just pause and take a moment to savor that, because I think that we tend to overlook the familiar and think it's too ordinary and not special. But I think when we pause and find the sacred in the familiar, there's a lot of really sacredness in the familiar. Like that's mindfulness, right? So to just really stop and listen to words that you use, things that are important to you, and to take that time to pause and notice them. This is something else that I'm really working with my students on lately, because it's like breath, right? We think, well, yeah, I know that. Or gratitude. Oh yeah, I already know that, right? Because it's become so familiar that we just dismiss it as I already know that, right?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think there's a real preciousness in the familiar, just like the people that we spend the most time with, right? They become so familiar that it's easier to see the negative traits rather than the beauty in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same with our
Absolutely.
yoga practice. We do it for so many years, we forget what a gift it is to us. So I think
Yeah.
that what you're saying is so important. And we need to dedicate more of our practice time to bringing mindfulness to this aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And for, um, like it's a thing that I see play out, like the familiarity or like the things that you already do. I see it play out with my students as well, in terms of like, well, when like in those moments during the class when I say just move in a way that feels good, and you like freeze because you're like, I don't know what that is. Like, well, what are things that you already do that feel good? Like the poses like that you just like really want to do all the time. Like they end up being like, just again, like that familiar, like, oh, well, I can't do that because like I know how to do that. Um, but there's value to turning back to the things that you already do, that already light you up and that already support you. Not everything has to be reinvented or everything has to be
Or
new all
new.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Because it lights you up for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
or it
Glimmers.
supports you for a reason. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah. And
um
when we take the time to pause with the glimmers, they become glows, right? Mm-hmm.
oh, that's good. Put that on a
Yeah.
t-shirt.
Yeah. Well, that's like trauma theory, ventral vagus stuff, right?
Okay. I
Yeah.
love that.
So I didn't come up with that on my own.
All right. Well, I love it. It's
It's really
beautiful.
good. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
good. But yeah, we
Yeah.
have to pause with them, otherwise they just kind of float away. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want me to continue or say
Yeah,
other
go
things?
on.
I don't know.
I really wanted to pause on that because I think it is
It's powerful
it's really
for sure.
powerful, and we don't pause to feel the power of the familiar. Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I sometimes kind of use the words of finding the extraordinary in the ordinary,
Oh, I love that.
right? Like that's
Yes.
incredibly valuable.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's that's life. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
life can become so mundane sometimes. So how
Hmm.
can you, um, yeah, find the extraordinary? And like, once again, you're washing the dishes. All right, let's like uh, find gratitude for the way that the water is like so nice and warm on your hands, or
Hmm.
that maybe you have a window in front of the sink and you can look outside the window, like things like that, right? Yeah. So I will say the other thing that was really helpful for me was so the words empath and sensitive soul. That was a scary thing to do. I will say
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
because it meant having to accept that in myself
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
being okay. So that was a big decision. Like when I did that, it was like when I like finally like clicked, like, and I like changed like the picture on my YouTube channel or whatever, like that felt like a really big thing, because it can get like eye rolls. It's like, oh, you're sensitive. Oh, like you're an empath.
Yeah.
Um, so that was in terms of like really, really and truly accepting that in myself. When it came to deciding that I was going to use that, those words,
Hmm.
um, but nothing, the world didn't fall apart when I did it,
Right.
and like it worked. Like it seems to be working really well. But that was another thing. So I don't know, that kind of speaks towards like, yeah, accepting, self-acceptance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Have you seen my series for highly sensitive people?
I saw that you have that. I would
Yeah.
really like to practice it.
Well, it's cool because I like you, I had a lot of trouble accepting that about myself, except for that there's a ton of scientific research. Like it's scientifically documented that even there are even highly sensitive ants. Like it's really, it exists across all animals in the animal kingdom. So for me, that gave it, it's not just like, I really struggled with the concept of it as well. Like to me, it felt like kind of a cop out, but then to see it so well documented by scientists, and oftentimes I shy away from that kind of stuff. I usually really trust in my own body and my own felt experience. But for some reason, seeing it so well documented and all the different types of highly sensitive people documented really validated that experience for me.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
So
for me, it was
doing that series was really supportive. And then, anyway.
No, I just saw it, I think a few days ago, and I was like, ooh, I'll have to do that. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. For me, it was a podcast. It's funny. It's like random things. For me, it was
podcasts.
A podcast. Yeah. Podcasts are great.
Aren't they?
I love podcasts. Yeah. It was a podcast that's called Empaths in Business. And I was like, oh, what? You can be this way and you can run a successful business? Like, heck yeah. So that was one of the things that for me was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm okay with being this type of person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, like, since making that, like, not statement, but just like putting those words in my intention, like, it has resonated with people. And I have people like saying like, oh, yes, like that's me. So again, it's reaffirming, which is great.
It's really huge for people to see themselves being acknowledged.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm guessing empaths and highly sensitive people can't do the like super high paced vinyasa style yoga flows. Yeah. Yoga for weight loss classes. They're just not going to jive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or even like the style, but also like the setting. Like I've had some students who are like, I love live stream classes because now I don't have to deal with the anxiety of having to go into a studio.
Yeah.
Right. So the accessibility in online yoga, there might be a conversation around that in terms of having access to the internet, but there is definitely like an accessibility, not only in the actual making the practice itself accessible, but online yoga has, like, we've seen this huge, obviously since COVID, like this huge surge of online yoga. And some students are finally like, yes, now I can practice because I can just do it in my house. And there's like, oh, I love that. I love that aspect to it. And like, I also really like it too. As somebody who is a sensitive soul, like I like to be able to teach from my home. I feel safe. So.
Yeah, it's true. Just having control of your own environment is really huge. I mean, I'm definitely a hermit archetype and I need a lot of time alone, and I've ventured out to classes and that can go either way. Like the last class I ventured out pre-COVID, it was I was really looking forward to it. It sounded really amazing. It was restorative yoga and sound.
Okay.
Sounds amazing, right? Only it was just over the top. It had, imagine every form of Indian music making you can imagine.
Okay.
Like every kind. And they did it all in that class. Like wow. every single one. And singing bowls and everything and chanting and like in a restorative class.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a sensory overload.
It was sensory overload. Yeah. And like there were no options given for restorative poses, which seems weird. But so, I was choosing to do certain poses other ways. And then I was singled out in the class for choosing to do I was mortified. And at that point, I was completely out of my window of tolerance. So I just couldn't eat. Like, I felt like if I got up and left, something really bad was going to happen. Yeah. So then I stayed to the end of the class. It was the like weirdest experience. And yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. And yeah, it made
Oh,
me think of like, wow, how important it is to give choice and options and let people know what's going to happen before they come. And yeah. Yeah.
the singling out, I think that's the thing that makes me
Oh
like,
my God. Yeah.
like,
That was awful because I had made a different choice from what this person thought should be happening in a pose. And it was to support an injury too. So it was like, are you kidding me right now? Like if I hadn't have been so experienced, like I knew that what was happening was wrong. So I was just angry. But, can you imagine if I'd been a new student, then I could have really hurt myself for one. But I feel like we're getting off topic now.
no, no, that's you bring up a really good point. And that's really, really important. I think is to, I think this is a beautiful space to be saying that, is that like when I personally go to a yoga class, I would say I probably do the exact same thing that the teacher is doing 75% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
25% of the time, I'm kind of adapting, I'm modifying, maybe I'm skipping that down dog because I don't feel like doing it, whatever. And I think that that's really important for students to know that like, this is their practice. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the teacher's.
Right.
And so being singled out in a class for doing something differently,
Yeah. And
like,
let's just continue to highlight that this was a restorative class.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like we weren't talking
Yeah,
about skipping a down dog. It was like modifying yeah. Anyway.
for sure. And modifications are important. Oh my gosh,
Right?
modifications are my thing. Like,
I
oh, those are
know.
so important.
Yeah. It's okay to
Yeah.
do things differently. Anyway.
Yes. And please do. Please do. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Oh
Choice is
man.
really important. Anyway.
Very much
Yeah.
so.
Okay. So do we feel let's bring it back. So do we feel like we've talked around how you got to your intention? I don't
I
know.
hope so. I hope so. I think
Yeah.
it comes down to I had support. I had amazing people in my life that really, really helped. And then it was a matter of like, yeah, being fluid with it, listening,
Yeah.
paying attention.
I think the
Yeah,
circling back around is really important and revisiting and yeah, I think and checking in on it again and again is really important too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Very much so. Because like you said at the beginning, like who knows? Like maybe like I'll be like, this doesn't feel right anymore in a few months or a year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
And
cool.
I think all of us know now from the experience that we had with COVID that things can change drastically, and then we need to change our plans accordingly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we need to
Absolutely.
adjust to the changes in our lives.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, like the why behind why you practice is gonna change.
It's going to change
Um,
depending on the
absolutely.
season in the year, the season in your life, the changes of the
Yeah,
people in your life. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. At sometimes maybe you're like, I really need like the like tough vinyasa classes, and then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're like, I just want restorative, or I just want
Mm-hmm.
yin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beautiful because it's all there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything you feel like went unsaid that you want to speak at this time?
I don't think so. I
Mm.
don't think so. I feel like we kind of bounced around a lot,
Yeah,
and I
that's all
think that's
right.
awesome.
I so enjoyed speaking
Yeah.
with you today.
Yeah, me too. This has been wonderful. Thank you
Mm.
so much.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
great. Let's get people to put so that we know if they listened all the way to the end of this really wonderful conversation. Let's get them to put yoga is cozy and accessible in the comments.
Love that.
Yoga is
Yes.
cozy and accessible in the comments. And then we would love it if you like this video and also subscribe to the channel. And we would love it if you go over to Carolyn's channel, Yoga with Carolyn, and subscribe to her channel as well. She's got lots of beautiful offerings, as you can see from our conversation today. And I think that's it. If you think anybody else would enjoy this conversation, but then be sure to share it with them as well. We love when you share the yoga love on your socials and stuff like that as well. So thank you so much for listening.